Alrighty there, hey, Tim Old Man Geek here, and today we're going to talk about DoorDash and unionizing. Let's see, where do we begin? I think I'm going to do this in two parts on this video. Part one is how do you have, what does it take to become unionized? So we'll get into that first, and then the second part will be, okay, you was able to get unionized, now what are you going to give up? Because it's a two-way street. Once you get unionized, then the union can bargain, make a collective bargaining agreement or a bargain agreement with the employer or DoorDash or whoever this employer may be. And then there's going to have to be give and take on both sides. So what would it look like? What's the potential it could look like? And are you willing to do that? So let's get into this first. What does it take to become a union? Well, first, independent contractors would have to be relabelized as employees. And right now, that's not going to happen, or it has not happened, because you have the only thing that was going to try to make that happen. It can be done in a statewide, and state laws change, like they did with a bill in California. And in other states have been in changes to relabel independent contractors with very strictly narrowing it down what an independent contractor is, and all those others that are now considered to be employees, which food delivery people would have fallen under, or do fall under their non-exception, because it's so tight and stringent how an independent contractor really is. So we're just going to look at the food delivery industry, because that's all I can really talk to. I'm not going to talk about the rideshare drivers and stuff like that, but I think they would fall under the same rules and categories. But first, there's been a bill that's called the Pro Acts bill, which passed back in 2021 in the House of Representatives and has been sitting in the the federal Senate to change the federal definition of employee and independent contractors with those strict things. And until that happens, you won't be able to unionize, because independent contractors are not employees, and only employees can unionize. So you have to get over that hurdle. Let's say you got over that hurdle. Now what's the next step? The next step would be in a market area. You can try the whole state, but the logistics on that would be almost impossible. Let's say a market area, as assigned by DoorDash, this is a market area or an area, because they have defined markets. So they define the market. So in different areas in those markets, or sub-markets and different markets. So you're going to have to go in that market, and you're going to have to get 30%. There's two ways. You're going to have to get 30% of those to sign a union card. Now, there's a difficulty in that, because it's not like a employer where you're working at a specific, like say, manufacturing company, and all the employees are there in one building that you can kind of get to and talk to, and maybe get to sign the card to get that 30% to cause a vote for whether or not to unionize. And DoorDash would be under no obligation to give anybody a list of all those people, who those people are. So how would you be able to meet that 30% threshold? Because you don't know, and who would you consider? If you've been inactive for 6 months, but you're on the DoorDash platform, are you part of that percentage? Just because you're currently not using it, and then you may go to later. I mean, they would have the right to vote if they're using the DoorDash platform. So that 30% mark is also another very giant hurdle to get over. Now, and then you have to have a vote. Now, when you have a vote, a majority who voted have to vote for the union. Another way around that is if you can get a vast majority of those who sign a union card, and the company voluntarily accepts that, and then a vote could take place, which usually does not happen. People are trained to not ever accept voter cards, union voter cards, if they're in management. It's part of your training. I know, I've gone through it. So, and if you get approached and you say, here, you need to, no, you're under no obligation to accept those cards. They have to go through that other process where they have to prove that they got 30% of the people to sign the union cards in order to vote to take place. So once that's done, okay, now a vote takes place. Who gets to vote? Everybody in that market area who works or it can work or has the ability to work in that area has the right to vote, and they can vote up or down. It's not just a 30% who get to vote that sign the cards. No, it becomes now it's everybody gets to vote once they, so then you have to get the majority. What happens after that? Okay, let's say you get the majority in that market. Now, what will happen next is it gets certified by the National Labor Relations Board under the National Labor Relations Act, which created the National Labor Relations Board, and they certify that union as not certified, but they say, okay, this recognized, and they have to have a vote. And then once the vote gets done, if it get majority passed, and it's certified, and a union is created. And once a union is created, so what? Now you're unionized. Now you have no bargaining, you have no agreement. So now agreement has to be hammered out between the union representatives and the company. That's a whole nother can of worms. And like I said, going to have to be give and take on both sides. And we're going to go over that here in part 2, because I'm going to be doing this at home on my laptop, so I can better have it out on a word processor so you can see that process. And so for now, let's take a quick pause, and then we'll get back into it here in a minute. Alrighty, here we go with part 2 of this video, and we're going to go over what the potential union demands could be, and what the DoorDash or demands would be in regards to a union contract. Now, like I said, this is all hypothetical and theoretical, so we'll just see where it goes. So let's see. Now, we want to unionize, and why? Well, we want a greater hourly wage. I just put $15 because that seems to be, looking around, that's what people bounce around, the $15 range. So mileage reimbursement, tip transparency, benefits for full-time employees, health, dental, etc. And I was basing a full-time employee working at least 36 hours a week, and a 401k or some other retirement benefit, whether it be profit sharing or something along those lines, pension plan, whatever. Now, like I was saying, when we get into this point, this is when they've met all the other things that we mentioned in the first part of this video, and a union has been certified, and now you're going into negotiations. So what is the potential things that you can change? Because remember, you changed the classification from independent contractor now to being a employee. So with that, you have less rights as an independent versus an independent contractor in some of these things that we're going to go over. And some of those things can be your flexibility of scheduling, your acceptance of contracts, and your completion rates, and how you can schedule, how you can't schedule, and other restrictions that they may or may not put on you because now you're an employee and not an independent contractor. So let's review some of those. Some of those demands can be a minimum acceptance rating from anywhere from 80%, I was just being, like I said, this is theoretical, to 100%, meaning you don't decline anything, you just take what they give you. That could be a very strong possibility. You need to have a completion rate of 92%, versus the 80% that they have now. Because now you're an employee, they're going to demand more of you and expect more of you because you're getting a guaranteed wage. They can also limit your hours, saying you can no longer work, 18 hours a day or 15 hours, because that's not really that's going to be a safety issue. and a safe work environment for yourself. So they may limit you to no more than 12 hours in a day, with a minimum of 8 straight hours off between any shifts if you go to 12 hours. Now, scheduling restrictions. They could go, you have to schedule in 4-hour blocks. And those would be, and you can't just take all the best times. You're going to have to take some bad times and some good times, because you got to be fair all the way across the board for all the drivers, So like no one person can have choice block times all the time. Now here's the big one. Multi-apping. You probably belong no longer to multi-app, because now you're an employee of one company. That company will say, while you're on with us, you cannot do food deliveries for another company, which is very reasonable and it can be expected. So, and they would want to be able to have the ability to double check that through the Dasher app to ensure that the drivers are not having other delivery apps running while they're on Dasher time, because now you're an employee. Like I said, independent contractor, not an issue. Employee, issue. You don't like to get to work at the retail store and then also working someplace else both at the same time. That doesn't happen, not when you're an employee. Then they can also put other restrictions on you, like you must complete 85% of your scheduled block times taken and comply with all other monthly expectations. Like I said, back up here, I didn't put that, but this is going to be your minimum acceptance rating of 80 to 100% and 92. They could take away based on your last 100 and say it's based on for the entire month. So you don't go, oh, I can make that all up in 1 or 2 days. It can be tougher to do that. And you can say, well, they can't. Yes, they can. You're an employee now. You must complete 85% of your scheduled blocks, meaning that if you take a 4-hour block and you only complete 2.5 hours of it, you can't do that all the time. I understand circumstances happen and things like that. That's why it's not at 100%. That gives you some allowance for some other a little bit of flexibility, but it also benefits the company, because once again, over here, you're asking for these guarantees of a salary, mileage reimbursement, full-time benefits. With those type of things come expectations, and you got to keep that in mind. So you must complete, and then all other monthly expectations, those discussed up above about the acceptance rating and completion rate, and they can put disciplinary actions, like failure to comply for 3 months over a 6-month rolling period could lead to disciplinary action up to termination. Remember, you're an employee now. You can be terminated. You got to adhere to company policies as per whatever the agreement is hammered out between the union, DoorDash, but once this agreement is done, or an A agreement is brought up, that agreement has to be voted upon all those in the union to either accept that contract or not accept that contract. So again, another vote would have to take place. And you got to remember, the union can make all the promises they want and say, this is what we're going to get you. There's no guarantee what they can and cannot get you. They're speaking on their own behalf, for your behalf, but with their interests, not so much your interests. They think that, well, okay, let's say no agreement comes up or no agreement is made. Does that mean no work still gets done? No. DoorDash will find a way to get work done. People will want to work, or if this gets hammered out and no agreement can be made, and then a strike is so-called, now you can actually legally strike, and you strike, doesn't mean that everything comes to a halt, because people will cross the lines, because people need to make money. So, like I was saying, these are some possibilities over here. of things that, this is, to me, would be a big one, the no multi-apping, which they would have every right to not put in there, and the expectation of completing your times and completing a what they would consider to be expectations, because you're an employee now. So you got to keep all that in mind. Is it good or is it bad? Do you want that? Do you really, really want that? Most of us got into doing independent contract work because of the freedom. So why would we want to go back to having things dictated to us versus doing things how we want to do it? Yes, we may not have the tip transparency. Yes, we may not have the full-time benefits, but we got to take that into account in things that we do and how we do things with our own money. If you're not setting up your own sort of IRA or independent, or individual retirement account right now, that's on, you're an independent contractor. You should take that upon yourself to do. Set $15-20 every week and put it into something like that, or put it in the stock market, or whatever, how invested however you want for your retirement. Well, with all that said now, how do you all feel about that? Would that all be acceptable to you? Is unions a good thing? Yes and no, but look at what you're going to be losing, because you're no longer an independent contractor. Now you're an employee with expectations put on you, and you have to follow. Otherwise, like any other job, you can be terminated. So with all that, please think about it. I don't think trying to unionize is even a good thing. Trying to change our status from an independent contractor to an employee is not a good thing. We'll lose too many of our freedoms. And you say, our rights, but you're no longer an independent contractor. You're an employee, So to me, that being an independent contractor and being independent is more important than being an employee of a company. I'd rather be independent. And I think you would too, if you look at the numbers and the possibilities of what freedoms you're losing in order to get or have an employee status stamp on you. So with that, we're going to go peace out. This is Old Man Gig. Please like, comment, subscribe as before, and click on one of my other videos and enjoy. And you all have a good rest of the day.